Good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott Anton with Gideon Taylor, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar this afternoon, PeopleSoft Visualized, Getting the Big Picture with Pivot Grids, Analytics, and Kibana. We're very happy to have you guys with us. As we go along, we are going to be recording this webinar. We will send out links to access the recording after we're done, so you can go ahead and view that and share it with others if you'd like. If you have questions as we're going along, we will take time throughout the course of the presentation to address those. So feel free to open a question in the Q&A option, or you can go ahead and post it via the chat option. We'll be monitoring both of those. And we'll go ahead and tackle those as they come in. We'll also leave some time at the end, hopefully, for some additional Q&A. Just to make you aware, we've got a few online events that we're involved in over the course of the next month or so. Next Friday, we're going to be participating in the Alliance Virtual Conference and hosting a session. Do me a favor, open the door and let them in, including external participants in PeopleSoft Workflow. That was the topic of our Master Series webinar last month, so some of you may have joined us for that. But if you're registered for the Alliance Conference, feel free to check that out. June 2nd, we're hosting an event as part of the Quest Forum digital event, a webinar on PeopleSoft onboarding. And then also our PeopleSoft Master Series webinar for June is a guide to building custom forms with delivered 9.2 tools. So exploring things like activity guides, page and field configurator, page composer, approval framework, fluid approvals, and then also a little bit of GTE forms tossed in there. So we encourage you to join us for those. We will include links to any of those in the email that you get at the conclusion of today's webinar. As just a little bit of a background on Gideon Taylor, we have been working with PeopleSoft since 2001. Starting as a PeopleSoft consultancy, helping organizations implement, upgrade, optimize, and maintain their PeopleSoft systems. Since 2003, our focus has really evolved to emphasize business process revolution, helping organizations drive greater value, more productivity, more efficiency from their PeopleSoft systems through a variety of strategies and techniques, but also tools and technologies. One of those is GTE forms, which many of you might be familiar with and many of you may use to automate custom workflow requirements within PeopleSoft, but then also leveraging the most of what PeopleSoft offers through delivered tools and capabilities. And ultimately, our vision is to help our clients work simply, effectively, efficiently, and flexibly. There are a few logos on this slide. We have been a long-time Oracle partner, so our Oracle Gold partner status, and then also the Oracle validated integration logos that you see there signify the integration that GTE Forms has with delivered PeopleSoft and the fact that it's gone through the Oracle certification process. It is the only form builder certified for PeopleSoft. In addition to providing some really cool tools for PeopleSoft, we also provide a whole host of services. And these are primarily centered around helping organizations optimize business processes and automate those business processes. So whether that's functional consulting, technical consulting, solution architecting, and then employing a variety of different strategies to drive greater efficiency out of automated business processes. There are a lot of really great organizations that we've had the opportunity to work with over the years. This is just a few of them that we've worked with to help them automate and optimize business processes within and around their PeopleSoft systems. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our two presenters and then hand this over to Paul. Our first presenter is going to be Paul Taylor, President, CEO, and founder of Gideon Taylor, and then also Kristen Tutera, who is one of our senior business analysts on our team, and happy to have both of them on the call this afternoon. Paul, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Glad to be with you, everybody, and glad to have Kristen here to help us out today. She's done some great work for Brigham Young University using pivot grids to really add a lot of power to our electronic form solution there. So I'm going to be handing it to her in just a minute, but first I just wanted to talk a little bit about just about visualization in general. We've all been focused on the overwhelming story of our day that will be something we all remember and tell our grandkids about, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. And as I've been keeping abreast of that, it's really interesting to me how visualization helps with that understanding. So I wanted to maybe start with this slide. So we've got metrics out there for all sorts of things, and this is some information from a Google community mobility report saying, okay, how much has our mobility changed? That's how much we're moving around, how much are we driving, and why are we driving? And so and I just grabbed a couple of categories out of this report. If you want to go look at it, the source is down in the corner. So here are some numbers where we've got less travel for retail and recreation, a little less for grocery and pharmacy, more travel to parks. Okay, that's interesting. So we've got a little bit of data here. We have some numbers, and that can help us to understand a little bit what's going on. We can add some text to help us have a little deeper understanding of what we're talking about. But when you add in some visualizations, there's more information that we can see, and we can get a better idea of what is actually going on. We can see that there's some things that have stayed low all the way along. We can see where there were some severe dips, somewhere we all got really scared, somewhere around April 12th, it looks like, 11th or 12th, and everyone stayed home. And but then you can see that that attendance at parks has been gradually increasing. So we can get some information from a chart that we can't easily get just from the numbers. And if this information, if all of this information across this timeline were to just be given to us in a spreadsheet or in a table, it would be really hard to pull that information out and make any sense of it. So we've got, so basically our visualization gives us an opportunity to understand the data a lot better than we otherwise could. Here's another example of what you can do with a visualization. This is again talking about mobility and saying, well, how fast did we slow down? And if this information, again, were just in a table, it would be really hard to see the regional nature of some of these differences. This is saying how soon average travel distance declined, and seeing that it declined in certain areas of the country faster than other areas of the country, and that would be really difficult to see just in a chart. But in one glance with the visualization, we can see what's going on. Here's another one. Do stay-at-home orders make a difference? Well, this is counties with stay-at-home orders and counties without stay-at-home orders, distributed over how much travel distance changed. Again, it's all the same data, but visualized in a different way that helps to make a point or helps to answer a question. Here the question is, do stay-at-home orders reduce travel? And I think we can pretty clearly from this say the answer is yes. Stay-at-home orders reduced travel. That's a simple question with a lot of complex data that then the visualization gets us back to a simple answer. So these visualizations can help in a PeopleSoft setting and in a business setting. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. Kristen helped Brigham Young University, one of our premier clients, to pull together a tool that would help them to visualize the transactions that they were conducting, or that they do conduct, over our electronic forms, our GTE forms system. And they wanted the ability to graphically see the forms that were in process, not only be able to see them, but then be able to drill in and actually act on those forms from that first visualized picture. So the picture is the navigation. And I can't stop talking about it, but I will try and hand it over to you, Kristen. You can just tell me when to advance slides.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much. So first, let's talk about just pivot grids, just as a quick introduction, and then, like Paul mentioned, I will show kind of what the scope of was for the BYU project, and then we can watch a short little video on just kind of a demo of it. So first, what is pivot grid? So pivot grids just charts that graphically represent query data. And then, like Paul was mentioning, allows you to drill down, take actions directly from the grid, which in this case was very helpful in processing forms. It's easy when your user doesn't have to navigate to additional pages to be able to complete their work. With pivot grids, what skill sets do you need? The solution that we're going to be showing today was predominantly done functionally. There were some technical assistance needed with building a custom view that is sitting behind the query that we use. And PeopleSoft query knowledge is useful because pivot grids can start as a query, and in this case it does. And when were pivot grids first available? So classic pivot grids were introduced with PeopleTools 8.5.2, and fluid pivot grids became available in PeopleTools 8.5.4. And then you can see just a quick shot of just what a pivot grid looks like. You can either show or hide that chart that's in the center of the page. And then the bottom section is going to be your results section that will show you your detail. And then you'll see the second column in is actions with a little green arrow. And that is the actions that can be taken directly from this grid. And then you'll see on the left-hand column, there's some prompts and then some facets to drill down into that data even further. So let's go to the next.
You can change what you're seeing by selecting or unselecting different statuses or form types over here.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. So just talking about what we wanted to initially create. So the scope of the project and what BYU came to us for was just wanting to create a dashboard. That way they had a global view of all of their current status on their forms that were pending, and then be able to take action on certain tasks directly within those forms without having to go to any other place within PeopleSoft to do so. And then they wanted to be able to use this for their hiring offices and then also initiators at the department level. So just a quick kind of overview of what you're looking at. Looks very similar to the previous screenshot. So on the left-hand side, we do have some prompts and then some facets that allow you to drill down into the data that you're looking at. The chart is representative of the number of forms that are currently pending, and then they're broken out by each individual form type. So you can see on this screenshot, there's a large volume of hire forms, which we typically see at university clients starting at the beginning of the semesters. So a really great way for them to use this moving forward to keep track of all of those new hires as those peak seasons come up. And then at the very bottom, you can see we've got a bunch of fields there that will show the results from each of those form types. And we'll kind of dig into those and see them a little bit in the next screen.
So I could then use this, right, Kristen, to narrow down if I just wanted to work on student contract hires. Then I could select student contract and hire. I could even select my department. to narrow down the list, and or I could click here to be able to drill down into these, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And the default PeopleSoft limits you to 100 results in that initial results section. So absolutely, the best way to manage and tackle these is really to condense that set of forms that you want to look at. That way you have the best scope of what you're looking at and really trying to take action on those ones.
And then we also have groups that would show if forms were more than 15 days old, you'd be able to narrow those down specifically, correct?
Yes. Yep. We also have a setup table in the back end of this that allowed them to define those age groups. So really kind of depends on what it's flexible, so that way you can define what you want those sets to be. If you know maybe the process takes a little bit longer, you don't want to always see it maybe after 2 days, maybe that tracking really should start a week or so out. Yeah, so that was customizable as well.
Gotcha. Thank you. Ready for the next slide?
Yeah, let's see the video here. So we brought this back into the GTE Forms framework. So we're referring to this as our approval management tool.
We'll turn off the voiceover.
Perfect. And we will have a link to this, and it is out on our YouTube page right now. So again, this is the same view that we had been seeing with the tool. We got into this through a tile. So you can see on this page now that we have some results in there. It's really, oh, sorry, here's the tile. So this is our results page, so you can actually see those results as they come through. We put the navigation just on our eForms homepage.
Oh, I apologize. Trying
No
to
problem.
get that to be where you want. Let's start right here. Is that right?
There we go. Yep, that's perfect. So we put the tile on the homepage, that way you're able to get into it. So when you click on that tile, it does open up that pivot grid for you now with our approval management tool. So the chart shows you the results. Again, this is still by number of forms and the form type. And the left-hand pane is that filter and facet, so you can drill down the information. So here I've drilled down to just one form type, and I've went even further drilled down to who actually started this form. That way I could see the results graphically there. Here's my age bucket. So we have two different age buckets, a last age group, and then the originated age date. And then here are my actions. And Paul, can you pause it right here real quick, please?
Yep. Do you need me to back up, or is that good?
No, that's perfect. We'll start with here. So when we click on that related action drop down, again, that green arrow button, that gave me my list of actions that I can take directly from the grid. So you can see here that I went and put the GT admin tool on here, because that's just a great tool to use to see the status of the form, see the old history on it without having to click away to any other pages. So we've added this. You can see it pops up in a modal window. So again, your user is not having to move screens. They can see all of the detail right here. And then once you're done reviewing what you need to on this section, you can then use the X to close out.
And there it went again.
And then you're back to the pivot grid. So here's the full list of actions. So here are the things that we put on there. No, you're good. So the admin tool, and then we also have links to the view, update, and evaluate task. And there was security on these ones to not show one of those tasks if you were not authorized to act on it. And then the final two actions we have on here is send email to approvers and then the form admin fields. So Paul, if we advance a little bit more in the video, we should see that email tool come up first.
Skip ahead.
So there's just the different tabs within our admin tool. And then just clicking on the view, this did open up in a separate tab. Just showed it a little differently in the video. So here's our email tool. So this is something that we built based on the BYU requirements, and then we did bring this into the framework. So if you have 3.30 version of the GTE Forms framework, this email tool is available to you. So this is how we were able to send emails to users that weren't a part of the GTE framework workflow or the notifications that we set up. So it's kind of a way to send a one-time email. So you can see it automatically populated in with the form ID. And then I'm just putting in what user I want to send it to. The great thing is you can see that GT email template dropdown. You can pick from your existing library of GT email templates. So all of those binds automatically work. I just went ahead and put in some additional detail just to help my user understand why I was emailing it, and then that sends. And you can see right as I sent it, closed out that window, and I'm still back on my grid, still with my facets and my selections in place. And then what we have paused on right here is our form admin fields. So this was a way to track within the pivot grid what actions were already taken, and a way for admins to kind of write notes back and forth or kind of mark your place on where you were on that form with the current status, opposed to actually putting it as a comment on the form, which is then visible to all of your users or anyone who has access to the form. So this was a good way for us to add that. So we have a couple different fields on here just for tracking. None of these are required. So you can fill in as few or as many as you want to. But we put things like next action date just so that they can filter on maybe a next follow-up date, or, you know, I sent this email out 2 days ago and now no one's responded, so it's time for another review. We put in some last action and some priority and status codes just to help out, and then an open text field for notes. While we're still on this page, you can see behind in the results section, we did add those fields as results on the grid, so that way you can filter based upon those as well, and they're visible without having to open this up. So you can see I'm just putting in some notes here on who I want to follow up with next and setting my next date. And now that shows in the top line for me. So that way I can track my progress on that form. The last thing that we've done on this is added a bulk action. So I've selected that bulk action icon, and now those action buttons go from the little drop-down arrows to checkboxes. And now if I select multiple forms and then select the form admin field, it's going to make those admin notes on all of the form IDs that I have selected. So it's a great way to make that same comment without having to individually go into each form if you know the status or the same answer is going to be on all of those. So again, I put those on the top 3, so yeah, you can see all 3 of those have that same admin comment. So that's the video.
Kristen,
again, that is, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
Kristen and Paul, we had a couple of questions come in. The first one is the tile renders fast for you? It used to take a few good seconds. The dashboard built to track the self-service registration for each of the 12 plants we have.
So I think that's a question about performance, about how quickly the results are coming back. We have some, you can get some really data intense situations here where it can slow down the system. We have a number of ways that we can improve that for reporting. Those include building materialized views that help flatten the data and make the queries faster. So if you have performance issues with this kind of thing, talk to us, and there are ways that we can work to speed that up.
Do views make it better for performance?
Views don't make it better by themselves. Views have built-in queries, and queries mean that rather than just reading table rows, that the database has to perform a query and in order to get your results set. Tables are faster, and because they're indexed. So materialized views are really tables. And if you use materialized views or materialized query views or MQTs or materialized query tables, MQTs, that can, there's a bit of a trade-off in that you have to decide how often you refresh those, but they can really speed up the performance because you're working with an indexed data set rather than having to resolve a query in order to get your results.
And we got one more before I let you guys go on.
Mm-hmm.
How did you build in actions in the results set?
I think that Kristen will be answering that question here as we move forward. So if it's okay, we'll pause on answering that one and let her answer that in line. Is that okay? Is it,
Awesome.
that's in your plan, right, Kristen?
Yes, yep, we will get to the related actions.
Okay, great.
Great. Back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so the next slide here. Perfect, thanks. So we'll get into a little bit of the how-to. So these are just the broad steps that we took in order to create the approval management tool that you just saw. So the first question is to identify the data that you need. So this is where you really want to start thinking about what fields do you want, what fields should be in the results section, what fields are going to make it easier for you to drill into the data by putting prompts on, and then digging into where can that data actually be obtained from. And then if you want to use that chart, which again you can hide if you want, what fields should be on your axis. And then just note you do want to make sure that your y-axis is a quantity.
That's the axis that goes up.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And then the second thing, once you know where all of your data is, we created a view, and this is where that technical assistance came in order to build that custom view. That way we could have all of our fields on our query, and then we could plug that into PeopleSoft's pivot grid. If you want to advance the next one, taking that view, we then have built our query. And then I put the navigation there for everyone through reporting tools and then query manager. A couple things that you can do on the query. This is a great place to change the labels of the fields for how you want them to show using the fields tab from query. And then this is also where we created the prompts that should be showing on the query, and then you'll have a chance within the next step to then say if you want to use them or not. But we did create them from the query. Step 4 is using PeopleSoft's Pivot Grid Wizard to walk you through the configuration. The wizard has 5 steps, walks you through creating the pivot grid, starting with naming it and defining where they can get the information or the data. In this case, it came from a query. Then we assign the prompts, give it an X and Y axis, decide if we want any aggregate values on it, and then you can walk through some display options on the grid as well.
Okay, and you get about 3 minutes for your next 5 slides here.
Okay, perfect. Next thing to do is we publish the pivot grid using a fluid tile to the home page. And then our next step is defining the related content. So this is back to that question. So the first thing we asked ourselves, what actions do we want to be taken directly from the grid? What should be done, or what can be done in bulk? How do we want the actions to open, whether it's a modal window or a new window? And then is there anything additional reference-wise that would make it easier for our approvers or reviewers on this? to know the form status or know what actions to take without them having to navigate away from the pivot grid. So once we've defined all of that here, here's some more of the related actions. So again, just to recap, the top 4 are the ones that we suggest as related actions, revolving around the admin tool and how to options to open the form for viewing. And then just to highlight 3 of the things that we've added in with our approval management tool. And then the first 2 are actually in the new GTE Forms Framework version 3.30. So the Form Admin Security tool allows you to customize the admin tool's actions that are available based on permission lists. So in the BYU example, say if we wanted to just give a department admin very limited access to actually see the form data, but we didn't want them to actually take any action on the form, we can hide all of the eForm actions with their permission list and only show them the raw data, and then use an actual department user's security permission list to grant more access to another user. So that's how I can kind of customize that. And again, we've already walked through the email tool and the form admin fields, but those are available and a good idea to put on that pivot grid as well. And then just some brief steps on how we put the related actions. The first thing we need to do is define the related action. So using the navigation there walks you through that top screenshot is the definition of the related content service, adding in some of the parameters. And then once you've actually added the parameters and defined the related action, then you can assign the related action to the component, which in this case is that pivot grid. And we just created a label for the action, defined how we wanted it to open, and then mapped our parameters.
So pretty much in many places in PeopleSoft now, if you can attach either a related action or related content. And really a related content just means it opens in a side panel, and related action means it opens over the top or in a new window. And you then, the main thing is you set up what information on your main screen is going to be passed through to get your related content or to enable your related action. In the pivot grid, it's going to be based on, for example, the form ID that was in the results. Based on that, we can pass that through to a whole bunch of different places to be able to do other things you can do with that form ID, like open its view or open it in the admin tool or whatever. So anywhere that you can pass keys through and open up additional related information or related actions, that's what you can do through the related content service.
And then just finally some considerations and references, just some quick tips. Joins should not be used on the queries. When using the pivot grid wizard, it's really important that you walk through all 5 steps of that and not stop it prematurely. It does tend to fail on the grid. Once you've added your new security, make sure that's on to tree security. If using GTE forms, want to make sure you have your query records built for each form type. And then finally, users will need security to pivot grids through the PeopleSoft pivot grid roles. And then just remember, if you want to give them, if you want to have components like the email tool or the admin tool as related actions, users also need to have access to those components to use the related content. And then we've got 2 links there for some outdoor resources. And with that, I'll hand it back.
Thank you, Kristen. Great job. Yeah, so this whole PowerPoint, we will be making it available for download. There's a lot of stuff that's really here as reference that we won't be going into during the presentation, but we want it to be available to you as you decide how to use these tools. So now we'll touch a few more tools, and we're going to touch these relatively quickly, but we kind of wanted to give you a broad picture of all the visualization options that you have available in PeopleSoft, because there are many, And you just saw one of the big ones, which is pivot grids. Simplified Analytics is another flavor. It actually is kind of an extension of pivot grids. So this from this Oracle slide, you can see we started out with classic pivot grids. Now we've got fluid pivot grids, and then Simplified Analytics gives the end user the capability to change the display of that pivot grid information and to actually create their own analytics using that same data that's underlying it in that pivot grid. Usually these analytics are already existing someplace, like on the My Teams tile, as we'll see in just a second. And this gives the end user an opportunity to kind of change how that display happens. Again, and this is a little bit of a visualization from Oracle as to how analytics have grown. And here with Simplified Analytics, you're able to, the end user rather than a designer is able to adjust and create their own analytics based on predefined templates that are already set up for them. So they can change a view around or change a graph around and have it continue to show up for them in that in the way that they set it up. So a quick walkthrough. Simplified Analytics is a user-guided tool that goes through a wizard process and enables you to then be able to publish the results as a tile, either on a home page or in a related content window. It's completely functional. And it became available with tools 8.5 and can be more broadly deployed in tools 8.55, more broadly deployed in 8.57. It's a pretty straightforward approach to doing that customization. Getting into Simplified Analytics, typically you do from someplace where those reports are already displayed, such as here in the My Teams tile. You'll see over here in the related information window, these are Simplified Analytics displays, which you can then extend or add more content to. By choosing that, you can then go over existing templates and then change how those are displayed, filter them differently to help them be meaningful to you, and then they become available here in the sidebar, for example, in My Teams. And you can also include them in different places on home pages and dashboards. Okay, so one of the pluses then is that they are very user-friendly and accessible. One of the minuses are that they're pretty much designed to be used for existing templates. And if you don't have templates made, you have to get kind of behind the scenes in order to add new query data to be able to manipulate. But walking through, you're answering simple questions. The kind of analytics really is your narrowed down list of templates that's available to you to start with, and then you're choosing how you want to display that information. So as you consider Simplified Analytics, this is you can add. I think that we are one of our big questions was, well, can you use Simplified Analytics when you don't already have a delivered template? And the answer is yes. I think that's what we came up with, right, Kristen? That we decided that yes, you can, if you get in and make a pivot grid into and associate it with the analytic report template that you can end up adding to the list of templates that are available. It's really, again, you want to use this when you want your end users to have a little more power and a little more simplicity in how they reconfigure a chart or an analytic based on data that you're already providing them. And lots of links to help you learn more about it. Okay, our next fun toy is Oracle JET. Oracle JET, what is that? It is an Oracle delivered JavaScript library, and it comes with PeopleSoft. You may not know you've got it, but you do. It's installed in the on your web server, and so you can get access to it from inside PeopleSoft, and it includes a lot of different visualization templates. So what skill set do you need for this? This is a technical tool. To use these in PeopleSoft, it's technical. In 858, you're getting some new capacity to pull them in, to pull templates into chart objects. It's still technical, but at least with a chart object, then you can get some access. But still technical. And in the walkthrough that we did here, you're doing JavaScript, people code, HTML objects, writing iScripts, lots of stuff. Oracle JET has been available for a long time, and the question is really what version you have access to. There is an Oracle JET Cookbook that you can look at online, and really an OJET version that supports the cookbook really came out in 857. You'll find older versions available that let you do various things, but it's also something that you can add to you can add updated libraries to your web server without having to upgrade PeopleTools if you want to. If you want to go see what version you've got, that's where to look. So the Oracle JET Cookbook is online. If you go to this URL, or just search for Oracle JET Cookbook on Google, you'll end up here. And again, this is a library that includes lots of controls and such forth. We're looking specifically at visualizations. And the example that we're going to use is the timeline visualization. So we walked through, and big shout out here to Jim Marion at JSM Pros. I saw at Oracle Open World last year, Jim showed me this related display that he built to show a timeline of basically that. In fact, I'm going to stop here. This is something that we actually just got working before this presentation. So this is live. Keep your fingers crossed. So his illustration showed a timeline on job data where you could go into job data and see a visualized timeline of when the different actions have taken place. And I thought, that is so cool. I want to do that. And this presentation here was an opportunity to walk through and use his template to and add that functionality to our EPAF system here. So in EPAF, you can have multiple forms to hire or to change the job for someone or to do a status change. And we already use some related actions. so we can drill into to look at job information and person information, or to take various actions like hiring them or changing their job information or putting them on leave or bringing them back from leave. So we added this ePath timeline. And this timeline uses an OJET, an Oracle JET visualization, and I'm just using my mouse to scroll in here to see when these different actions happen. So I can see that this person had a hire form submitted for them at the beginning of April last year, and then they had a job change in July, and another one in February, and then a status change form submitted in May. And I could build this out so I could actually drill into these to bring those forms up and look at them. This will stack. If I had more data that was getting in the way of itself, they would stack up on top of each other like that to show me, and I could pass more information in to see what actions were taken, all sorts of things that I could do with this. So again, that's just cool to me. I think that's great. There were a lot of moving pieces to pull it in. Like I said, it's a technical task. So just getting back here, and we're not going to go into these in great detail. The information is a lot better laid out in Jim Marion's videos that I'll link on the next slide, but it involved bringing in some JavaScript and building some HTML objects, and it included building an iScript, and it included building some related content and publishing that. So lots of moving pieces, but in the end, you're able to leverage this really robust visualization and do it inside PeopleSoft, driven by PeopleSoft content. Did that walkthrough. So you do want to remember with OJET that you do have dependencies on what version is deployed on your web server. Everything that the best that I can tell you in terms of how to do this is do what Jim Marion says. He's awesome. These are some links to his videos about Oracle JET, and we just used his template. He's got code out there on GitHub to walk through this timeline example, and we were able to customize that to use it for our eForms timeline rather than job data. So, and again, the timeline is just one of many templates that you can use with Oracle JET.
Paul?
Yes.
We've had a couple of questions come in on Oracle JET.
Very
One
good. Let's hear them.
Is JET included across all the application suites, HCM, Campus Solutions, Financials?
Yes.
Quick and easy answer.
That's right.
Second question, that timeline was pretty good. Can people use D3 Java libraries also if they need, or Oracle JET does most of the chart jobs?
I haven't worked with D3, but Jim Marion has actually used D3 in PeopleSoft. And so yes, it's a matter of passing. There are a number of different ways to pass information from PeopleSoft into a JavaScript object or library. Oracle JET is one of those libraries, and the way that we used here was with an iScript. So by defining an iScript, we're able to then pass in information as parameters on a URL to that iScript, and then those values, here it was empl ID and empl record number, those then can be used by the iScript to gather the appropriate data here out of a SQL object and push that into JSON and use that to feed into the JavaScript library objects. And yes, that should work with D3 as it does with Oracle JET.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So Kibana, we're getting short on time. I'll move through this a little bit quickly, but Kibana is a visualizer that's powered by Elasticsearch. So in the last couple of versions, PeopleSoft has gone through a number of different iterations of how do we provide broad search capability inside of PeopleSoft, and they settled on Elasticsearch, which is a third-party Elastic company product, and it's now bundled with PeopleSoft, and it runs on a separate server. Among the advantages are highly indexed, large volume data that's very quick response. So basically, it's like taking Google search and sticking it into PeopleSoft. And as long as you can index your data into it, you can search across it. Once it's in that Elasticsearch index, you can use Kibana to visualize it. The driver for Kibana was to visualize log data, but it can be used to visualize any information that you push into the Elasticsearch engine. So in Tools 858, new release, you now have, it goes beyond using just the delivered visualizations to allow you to actually create your own. Again, this is a very technical tool for setting up the indexes or for creating visualizations and putting those into PeopleSoft. You're using a separate tool to create the visualizations and then embedding those in various places inside of PeopleSoft. And there are some new tools with 858 to include those visualizations. You've got to get Kibana to begin with, and that and really the prerequisite there is you've got to have Elasticsearch, an Elasticsearch server created, and you need to start the Kibana service for it. You have a visualization tool that allows you to build visualizations and create dashboards. Hooking that back into PeopleSoft is we use a lot of the similar approaches that we just walked through with Oracle JET in order to get access to those. But you have an extended license. You'll need to look at your licensing with 858 to see what you can use Kibana for, but you do have a lot broader license to be able to use Kibana with PeopleSoft once you get to Tools 858. Just a couple of ways that this can be tied together. You'll see here I've got a home page with a tile. Hitting that tile, I can then bring up in related information Kibana-based visualizations. I can set privileges and security. I can open in a separate visualizer window and get all sorts of pretty charts here. And here we're stealing a visualization. I'm sorry, we didn't attribute this one, but so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But we are hooking together People Tools, Kibana itself, and the Elasticsearch server that has the search data on it in order to be able to produce graphs for the end user. So again, we can plug that into related information or on a home page, and it can also be opened separately in the Kibana dashboard, which is a separate application with lots of pretty charts. Again, driven initially by visualizing log data, but you can visualize anything that you want as long as you can get that data plugged in. A very broad visualization library. So Again, part of the challenge, the biggest challenge really with visualizing in PeopleSoft is coming up with how you want to look at the data, and that's a really creative process. And one that we can help with, if you have an idea and you think that being able to work from a visualization would help, let us know and we can try to help come up with ideas with you. There's some overlap here between Kibana and pivot grids, some things that you would lean to one over versus the other. One thing to keep in mind is that pivot grids are typically real-time data, whereas Kibana is working off of an index that is not real-time. So you can refresh that index, but Kibana is great for large volumes of data because it's going to give you a lot of performance and speed. Think Google searching, and it's not going to impact your PeopleSoft performance because it's on a separate server. With 858, it does not add a lot of cost to use that.
Paul, we've got a couple of questions come in.
Lots of references on Kibana. Go ahead, yes.
For Kibana, you mentioned security. Does that include department level security?
I assume that you can use department level security because you can really plug in any data sources that you want. It's going to depend on whether you feed it a department security driven data source. So that depends on how you index your information onto the Elasticsearch server.
And then I've got one more right now. Any comments on tools like Tableau for visualization and analytics with PeopleSoft if our company is looking to integrate other ERP systems like QAD?
I haven't used Tableau. Integrating, choosing a visualization platform that is broader and that pulls in additional system is definitely a strategy that you can look to take, and that's always there's always a tension between, do you want to use the tool that is already tuned and built to work with PeopleSoft, or do you want to build the integration of another tool with PeopleSoft? And there isn't always a single right answer on that. Again, I'm sorry I can't speak to Tableau specifically and how that integration with PeopleSoft works. But PeopleSoft in general has a lot of solid integration tools, and you can usually make things work. So yeah, looking at it as part of an enterprise strategy is a great way to go. It opens up more questions and brings in more tools into the conversation.
Great, thank you.
You bet. And I'm sorry, I know that we're just about out of time. I'll just hit a couple more thoughts. You've got lots of visualization options, and then the question is, well, where do you put them? And we've gone over a few of those. You can deliver them in a fluid navigation collection where you make a selection on one side and then see the visualization on the right. You can deliver them, you've seen us deliver them as a homepage tile, in related content frames on the side, or popping over the top in modal windows or in new windows. One of the other options is fluid dashboards, and since that's relatively new, we wanted to at least walk through that for you. Fluid dashboard is another place where you can hang your content, and this is really made up of tiles rather than pagelets like in Classic. It can help provide a drill down area so that your home pages don't get too cluttered. So basically you drill down from home pages to dashboards. They're functional to configure, and this is a little bit out of order there. All right, there we go. And we're introduced with 855, but I wouldn't do anything fluid with 855. I'd get to 856. You do get some contextual fluid dashboards where you can pass in parameters to narrow down the results. So a couple of walkthroughs. I won't step through this, but it's available for you to take a look at. So here, drilling down, you can get a dashboard that looks like this, that you can integrate any of the various visualization strategies that we've looked at into a tile and collect those tiles on a fluid dashboard to create one place where you can see a lot of related visualizations. And some references for those. So in general, a little summary here. We've got complexity to implement up this way, feature robustness going this direction. This is kind of how I see it. You got simplified analytics, which could be bigger and move up if you create your own, but you're typically starting out with existing templates, and just tweaking those. So easy, limited. Pivot grids are a little harder, but and they can bend your brain a bit, but really powerful. Lots of things you can accomplish, like the BYU tool. Kibana and Oracle JET really require more technical work. They're moving up the scale, and but they've got very broad applications and lots of rich feature sets that you could pull in if you invest the effort to do the technical work to include those inside of PeopleSoft. And I think we will stop there, and we're out of time, but we are available for question and answer. If anyone wants to stay, we'll stay around as long as anybody has any questions for us.
Paul, that was great. That was a lot of content.
A lot of content. Again, Scott will make this available, the recording and the PowerPoint itself, to review. And again, downloading the PowerPoint will give you access to all of that reference material that we've included. Any additional questions? Sorry, yes, we'll hang out. And thank you, Kristen. She did a great job covering the solution that she had a big hand in creating for BYU. I love the idea of visualization as navigation. To drill into transactions.
There are a lot of great options to leverage all of that data inside PeopleSoft to allow users to more readily, easily, efficiently, effectively consume that. And especially now that things are maybe quiet, the rush of responding to the pandemic might be quieting down a little bit, and folks are kind of settling into, okay, where do we go next? This might provide some good filler opportunities, some really good ideas or some opportunities to leverage what PeopleSoft delivers and build out some of these visualization concepts and tools.
Right. Yep, the scarcity is not in tools or available technology, especially if you've got GTE forms. The scarcity is in the creativity and the innovation to come up with applications and to see places where visualization and automation can make a big difference. It's always good to start from a pain point, find some place where it hurts, and find ways that a bigger picture and more automation would help reduce that pain. That can lead to the ideas that will then go, and then you can choose a tool to bring that idea to life. Well, I think our key
questions coming in.
Yep. So, and that last sentence I said just sounded particularly profound, so we'll just stop with that.
Sounds good. Well, for everyone who's still on the line, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you join us for other future webinars. We'll send out a link to both the recording and the PowerPoint itself, and hope you guys have a great afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.